Charlie, welcome to the Jehu Garcia podcast. I'm very lucky to meet you. Probably like most people you meet these days, I feel like I know you because I spend so much time watching your adventures. You're a world-class traveler. You're an actor and world-class traveler, right? Adventure traveler, because you have multiple series of traveling the world, either in a motorbike or in all kinds of other forms, right?
Yeah.
How did it all start for you?
Well, I suppose for me, I suppose that there's a lot of people out there who don't really know who I am, but my father is a film director, and he directed films like Deliverance and Excalibur and Hope and Glory, Point Blank, Normal Forest, lots and lots of really big movies in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and in the thousands. And he was one of the world's great film directors and stuff. And I had three sisters, we would go travel around the world with him when he was making movies. And then if there was a part for a kid in it, he would say, "Don't employ a kid. I've got three children." And so we'd get thrown into his movies. And the first film I was ever in was a film called Deliverance. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it was about four guys going down a river and all in the and everything going wrong. But anyway, at the very end of that movie, I'm sitting on a sofa with and I'm playing John Voight's son in this movie. And my father says to me, he says, "Charlie, if you sit on that sofa with that bloke, I'll give you a tricycle." Now it sounds very dodgy, but I wanted that tricycle. You know? But
Okay.
but and so my father was always really well known for big adventure movies, you know, really difficult places to film and crazy parts of the world and stuff like that. So I think as children we were dragged around to all those places. So I think that he instilled that sense of travel and a sense of adventure in us. And so my whole life has always been about trying to get to the next country, to a different part of the world. I remember when I was acting properly in the 80s and 90s, I was then most successful. You know, if someone said, "Oh, there's a movie going on in Africa," I'd say, "I'm there." And then I'd read the script on the plane and think, well, it's not very good, but good location.
Good location.
Shit
Yeah.
script, but good location. So my career sort of slowly started to go this way, and at some stage Ewan's career was sort of going this way, and somehow as I was going down and he was going up, we kind of met, and on a movie, and this was my big comeback movie with Greta Scacchi and Richard E. Grant and Pete Postlethwaite and Ewan, and I thought, I'm back. Anyway, that movie went straight to DVD. Didn't do very well at all. but
Yeah.
but out of that came this great friendship with Ewan, which little did I know 24 years ago that what an influence we would have on each other.
Yeah, and so that means the way round, right? That's the
Long way round, yeah.
long way around. Was that the first adventure, uh, you know, adventure that like traveling adventure that you had that was shot, like that was turned into a TV series?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
as I said,
wow.
we met on this movie, and then when we came back, we helped run a motorbike race team for a while. We used to do track days on circuits all over Britain. I mean, we were obsessed about all that kind of stuff. And then we would do these little trips with friends, and a couple of days, and then a couple of days turned into a bit longer. And then we were always looking for something longer to do. And then somehow this long way round came about, and we were going to go down to the south of Spain and on our bikes and meet our wives and children in the south of Spain and have a holiday, and then ride back. And then Ewan rang me up and he said, "Charlie, I've got this great idea. Come round to my house." And so I went round to his house and he had this big map of the world. And he said, "Look,
Yes.
Charlie," he said, because we'd already decided that we were going to ride to China because his wife was brought up in China. We thought that'd be a good idea. And he goes, "Look, forget China, Charlie. We can go to China, but the Bering Straits and the Far East Russia is not very far away. we could just hop over to Alaska, Canada, America, New York, and why don't we just do London, New York? And I thought that's a good idea, and that's pretty much how that started. But it all looks very easy when you're looking at it on a small map. So if you're ever trying to convince somebody to go with you on a big trip, just find a really small map and just say, look, we're just going to go from here to here. How difficult is that? And so we kind of did that, and we were just going to go do it on our own and stuff. And then I didn't have any money, and so we had to sort of figure out a way of doing that. And then someone mentioned about a book, so we thought we'd do a book. And then and the book thing was quite easy to get. Two friends going around the world, not knowing what was going to happen, would be a great story. But for the TV world, they like to know that something's going to happen. Otherwise, boring TV show. But so that was a bit of a harder sell, and we managed to sort of get that. And the reason we did the TV show was because we got the book deal, but I'm dyslexic, so I can't write, and Ewan's not that great a writer either. So we got the deal, and we thought, how are we gonna write the book? So then we thought we would do like video diaries, so we'd film ourselves, and then
that's where the video diaries come from. That's cool. Yeah.
And we thought, then we'd get someone to help us write the book, and we'd use the video diaries to do it. And then we thought, well, if we're going to do video diaries, we may as well film it. And so it sort of came across like that, really.
Wow, so the TV series was secondary. This whole trip was about a book. Well, first about the adventure, then the book, but then the TV series came out kind of second. That's crazy because
because I'm dyslexic and we can't. Neither of us can write a bloody word.
There you go. See, a blessing in disguise, right there. Well, that was a pretty amazing adventure. I saw that whole thing. And I remember one of my friends down in San Diego, he owns a shop, EV West. Yeah. And he used to tell me about that, right? Oh, yeah, he wouldn't, he went around the world or whatever in the thing. And I thought, like, what is that about? It wasn't until later that I was like, oh, yeah, this guy used to tell me about these adventures. That was pretty crazy, especially when you guys were way over there trying to cross all those rivers in Russia. It was pretty hairy.
It was awesome. And, it was one of the things, when we finally got onto the Road of Bones, which is the Far East Russia, is pretty much as far as you can go, really. And that's where all the Gulag camps were, where they would send their political prisoners to this place to build a road that really didn't go anywhere. And it was called the Road of Bones because it was literally
paved with bones.
People basically died and were buried in it as they died because there was nowhere else to put them. But so it was quite a place to be. And then the roads were actually in quite good condition, but it's just there were no bridges left, and they were all being washed away. So it was a real adventure to try and get through that. So we kind of did that show, and eventually got into New York, and then we did long way down went from Scotland to Cape Town, and through Ethiopia and Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, Malawi, all through Africa on the back of motorbikes, and that was incredible. And then we had this sort of 12-year kind of gap where
you were busy, right? Because I just saw one yesterday where you're doing a Dakar race or something. So that came out of also the book deal. You said you felt like you had to do it. You kind of because. You said you were going to do it or something, so they held you to it, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I kept talking about it. In when you and I were doing Long Way Round, we'd be out in the desert and really difficult thing. We'd be riding and we'd come up and say, "Oh, I'm having a Dakar moment," and all this kind of stuff. And I'd grown up watching the Dakar Rally, which is probably the most difficult and most dangerous off-road race in the world.
Yeah, it's similar to Baja 1000, but this one is longer. It's in Africa, right? So it's about the most extreme races in the world that you can do.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the Baja, which is 24 hours, and then imagine that 16 days in a row, and then you kind of got the Dakar Rally.
Yeah.
So it's a nutrition as well. There was 260 motorcycles started when I rode it in Africa, and only 60 motorcycles finished. And
Wow.
sadly, I wasn't one of them. I broke
Yes.
my hands at one stage, and heroically finished the day with two broken hands. But
Yes, I
in
did see you
hindsight,
with the two
probably
casts like this because you had a couple other team members
yeah.
that kept going, right?
Yeah. No, and so we made a sort of doctor because the great thing about it is that it's still a race that you don't have to be a professional to
To enter.
to enter. You just have to be an idiot or stupid or
Yes,
or
adventurous.
adventurous. Yeah, adventurous. That's a much better word. And they like if you travel a lot and people say I'm going to Africa or something like that, they go, that's a
I
dangerous
wouldn't go over
place.
there.
And
Yeah.
you go, really? And they go, oh yeah, it's very dangerous. Have you been there? No. Right. Or
Yes.
everybody has some story about it, right? And they're usually just bullshit, the stories, right? Or not true. Anyway, so when people start talking to you about the Dakar Rally, they tend to make the stories a bit less than they actually are. So it's the only thing I've ever come across where actually every
People
story that they tell
downplay it.
you is that people actually downplay it. Otherwise, no
What?
one would do it.
Yes. Yeah, no, it sounds. I've had a little bit of experience going down to Baja and seeing that race, and it was like, holy crap, this is crazy. I could only imagine what the Dakar race is
But
like
it's the
because
speed that people go. You're going along, and if you were just normally doing it, you would sort of slowly go through whatever you had to do and stuff like that. But in order to do the decade, you just got to
you
pin
have to
it
go.
wide open
Yes.
and just anyway.
And off road. This is not paved roads. This is
No,
the
yeah.
worst roads that you experience in
Or no
Russia
roads,
or whatever.
often
Yeah.
often it's just, and then you have to you have to navigate, and so it just says at kilometer 226, take compass bearing 115.
Wow. Wow,
And
you're
that's
navigated.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because there's the roads.
as a dyslexic, it's just a nightmare as a dyslexic because I can't tell my right from my left. So I had to actually put on my hands. I had to write right and left with a pen on my hands, so that when it says go right, I'd look at my hands to see which one was to go right.
Wow, that's crazy.
Anyway,
So
but
then
all
you,
made me a stronger man for this last adventure.
yeah, well, so that means throughout this time you're running, you're doing adventures, right? You shouldn't, because like I said, you have multiple series on
Yeah.
travel adventure, right? Either on a thing. I
Yeah.
saw one where you're going to extreme places. You did a thing where you went to Hawaii, one of my favorite places in the world, to see some volcanoes. Which, by the way, that was pretty crazy. I got to see them from afar, from a helicopter. You were right there standing. You were fishing the floating
Fishing for
lava.
floating.
That was
Yeah,
pretty
we were so
crazy.
excited about getting this piece of lava. We picked it out of the water. It was like, got this lava. And then
Yeah.
it was only when we saw the rushes afterwards that the middle was still
You could see that it's
red.
still molten
And,
lava.
It could have
Yeah.
been a disaster.
I-
But it was
you
good
know-
fun. That was by any means. And so we went from sort of, that was kind of cool. It was good fun. It's good fun just knocking around. It's kind of good fun. And I suppose that's why you do it, is to, is for the travel of it all. And it's not so much, it's about the places that you go to, but it's and the A to B of it all. But it's what happens in between, and the people that you meet along the way, and the adventures, and it's all the things that go wrong that
make the
that
trip.
you remember. Yeah. I mean, you don't remember the day when you had that lovely pina colada on the beach, but you do remember on the way home when your rented car broke down, and then you had a whole thing to get home, and those are the bits you remember.
Yeah, when that group of guys in oh man, what country was that? That was some country where they didn't even speak the language. You guys didn't understand what they were doing, and they all of a sudden fix your motorbike, right? It's like, oh, that's what they were doing. Okay, hopefully, that's a pretty exciting thing.
But that's the thing, and I think when that was in Mongolia, and I think when you're in the middle of nowhere and stuff like that, and something goes wrong, you rely on the fact that the next person comes along is going to stop and help you, and one of the things you learn about when you travel is that if you do break down and stuff like that, you can really be safe in the knowledge that someone will eventually come along and help you. you know, and in Mongolia, for instance, if you take your driving test in Mongolia, you have to pass a mechanical test as well
Oh,
before you can take your
wow.
driving test, because the place is so big and there's no infrastructure. So if you break down, you have to be able to fix it yourself. So that's
Wow.
part of taking a
And the roads are
lesson.
so bad that you're most
Oh, they're
likely
terrible.
your car's gonna break down.
Sure, for sure.
Yes.
You know, not a signpost in the whole country.
Yeah, that is a crazy adventure. And while you're doing this, you've suffered a few accidents, and you're right. You've suffered a few. You were hospitals at one point, right?
Yeah,
Not too
no,
long ago.
yeah, recently, well, I've done motocross all my life, so you're used to falling off and breaking the odd fingers and
Bones.
ribs and bits and pieces, collarbones and stuff like that. Nothing too bad. And at the same, if you're riding a horse or something like that, often they'll say that they've broken things and stuff. But recently, 2016, I was doing a launch of a Triumph motorcycle, and I got clipped by a car and hit a wall and
Whoa.
destroyed my legs, and that took a couple of years to learn to walk again.
Oh wow.
And
So it's
then,
pretty serious. Yeah.
yeah, that was a big one, and a big external cage around my legs, and they were shattered, and almost lost my left one, and all this kind of stuff. And I think it was just hanging on by the calf muscle. I remember, if you fall off a motorbike, one of the things you do is get up quickly and pick up the bike and jump back on the bike and pretend that you haven't crashed. So
Nothing happened.
when the next person goes by, you sort of go, "Oh, hi guys, nothing to see here." And this one, I remember jumping up and thinking, "Well, I've got to," because I had the world's press were there. It was a
Oh
launch of
wow.
a new motorbike, so there were a bunch of people from the States, from Canada, from Brazil, and I remember getting up and going to walk to my bike, and I was thinking, God, my left leg feels weird, and I looked down, and there was this below my knee. There was this thing just flopping about.
Oh no.
It wasn't
Yeah.
attached at all, just by a bit of muscle. So I remember sort of
Wow.
sitting back down, thinking, "Oh, that's not so good." But so that was quite bad. And that took about 2 years to get back to walking again, because I broke both legs. And then just as I got well and I was finally riding motorbike again, I was in South Africa. I take a bunch of people through South Africa every year on motorcycles from Cape Town to Victoria Falls, and we go through South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, stay in these beautiful places, safaris, all that kind of stuff. I have to stop on the I have to stop on the road because 60 elephants are crossing the road. And you're sitting there waiting for these elephants to
Wow.
cross by. Anyway, so I had this huge crash there. I had no idea what happened. Woke up 18 hours later in hospital, and I broke my collarbone, snapped my forearm in half, broke my pelvis, head injury. Anyway,
Wow.
so what happened? So I'm sitting there. I finally get home after that, and I'm back in a wheelchair again. Having spent a year and a half in a bed before that. And pooping in a potty and all that kind of stuff, horrible stuff, as you have to do. Never a greater moment of my life than when I finally sat on a normal toilet again. I can't tell you. It was as if I'd ridden a motorbike for the first time again. It was just the most wonderful feeling. But
Is that one
so
of
I'm
the
back
most
on a
underrated pleasures in life?
yeah. I tell you, just next time you go to the bathroom, just remember, some of us couldn't do
Enjoy
that
it.
for a long time. Yeah, exactly. Enjoy it. Yeah. Take your time.
Okay.
But so I'm back in a wheelchair, again at home, and you can imagine my wife not particularly happy. First time worried, second time she just thought idiot. It's probably right. But anyway, so Ewan comes in to see me and comes for a couple of days, ends up spending a month living at the house, and we hadn't seen each other for such an ages properly. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. And then, of course, the first thing we talk about is motorbikes. That's pretty much all we ever talk about. And then we started talking about doing Long Way Up, because we'd always spoken about doing a third one. And I remember we sat there thinking, how are we going to make this? We'd love to do this again, but we want to do it differently and make a different experience. And And then so Russ and Dave, who help us make these TV shows, came along for a barbecue at my house, and we spotted it. And Russ said, he said, well, what about, he loves sort of record breaking things and things that people haven't done before. And he goes, well, what about doing it on electric motorcycles? And we could be, people have done bits of it on electric before, but not how we wanted to do it. And so we all thought, that's a good idea. One of those things where you think it's a good idea at the time, but without realizing what a challenge it was actually going to be. And so that's kind of how Long Way Up sort of came about, and the electric of it all. I think part of it was about that's the way, that's the way the world is going. But part of it was for the adventure and for the fact no one said it before, and that's how that kind of sort of came about, really.
Yeah, that was very ambitious because, I mean, I told you, I converted this car 7 years ago, 8 years ago or something like that, and it's fine. I mean, it makes a classic car so much better.
Yeah.
But I drive it around town, I plug it in my garage, and then I know wherever I'm going to go is not too far. So you guys are doing the thing that is like hard, that is out there in the future. That's the ultimate, hurdle that we have to pass, with electrics. It's traveling, right? And not only are you guys traveling, you're traveling in one of the most remote parts of the world, right? This is parts where like most Americans don't know anything about, which is down there in the tip of South America. That's Patagonia, right? This is about the most remote places that you can go in the world. I'm like, how are you going to be traveling over there with electric bicycles, like motorcycles, like, but you guys did it.
Well, I wish you'd been there to sort of point that out to us, because maybe we would have done something else. I don't know.
Well, to your credit, you guys did go to meet my friend Michael Bream at EV West, and he basically told you guys that, right? Like, you guys are crazy. You're not gonna drive that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
you're never gonna do it. It's like we left there going, well, okay, well, whatever. Let's ignore him. But yes. but I remember arriving in Argentina in Ushuaia, which is in the sort of the bottom of the world, basically, and we were sitting there with these two Harley Davidsons that were some amazing bikes, and they converted them for us from road bikes into adventure bikes. So they put a big front end on it, and they jacked up the back. They put panniers on. They did an incredible job of converting these bikes and made them a real adventure bikes. But when you and I were sitting there looking at these bikes, we realized that we'd only ridden them for about an hour. And they weren't for sale yet. They,
prototypes.
Prototypes, basically. And then we had two Rivians as well come along, which was
prototype Rivians too, right?
Yeah, and they were the first and second ever built. And
wow!
So they'd never been built before. So it was. So I think from the start we were pushing our luck, and then we had all this complication about how we're going to charge it, and there's no fast chargers in the whole of South America and Central America. I think there's a couple of fast chargers in some of the bigger towns, but we weren't really going there. And so we had to just plug into people's houses to do 13,000 miles. And each country has its own
standard,
voltage,
right? Yeah.
Standard. So we had it was, and then of course when you first start driving or riding electric, you have range anxiety syndrome.
Yes.
You think, well, I'm going to leave now, but will I get to where I want to go? And if I get there, how am I going to fill it? And will there be any electricity? But and it reminded me very much of what it must have been like when the first petrol cars came about.
Yeah, I think most people don't think about that. They think, cars, they've been around forever. Roads have been around forever. It's like, no, there's a time when they wouldn't.
They're everywhere. But when people first started driving petrol cars, exactly the same things were happening. So you would leave your house, your petrol car that's behind you, your little Volkswagen, and you'd fill it up with fuel, and you'd want to get down the road, I don't know, maybe 30 miles down the road, and you'd fill it up and you'd think, well, I think I can get there. But when I get there, will there be any gasoline when I get there? And because over here, I don't know what it's like in the States, but over here, originally you could only buy gasoline in a pharmacy.
Oh,
and and
yes.
and and so then you would think, well, and so people had terrible range anxiety whether or not they would make it or not, or make it home even. So, and it
Yeah.
was kind of, it made me laugh. I started to realize I was having the same issues that all these people were. Eventually petrol stations started to come about, and now you can get petrol anywhere. And the same with electric charging now. They're pretty much all over Britain
Yeah,
and
the only
Europe.
difference is
And
that electricity kind of exists everywhere around the world. I mean,
yeah,
there are remote places that don't have electricity, but for the most part, any of the developed world, modern world, has electricity, some form of electricity, right?
yeah.
So if you could
And
just
so
tap into it, you're fine.
yeah, exactly. And so that was our thing, was what we'd do is we'll go along and we'll do what we can, charge for an hour or so, or a couple of hours during the day. But when you're just plugging in, it's slow.
It's
you know
slow,
it's slow. I
hours,
mean, it
right?
takes 11 hours to fill a Harley Davidson just by
Yeah.
plugging it into the wall. And so that was challenging. And then we would go to a business or someone's house, or something, we plug in and we plunge them into darkness, and stuff with the fuses would go, and all sorts of
You
stuff.
blow all their
So
fuses.
they're
Yes.
going along. And the thing was is that people wouldn't say, oh, no, go away, you can't do this. They would be going, okay, well, if that didn't work, let's plug yours into here, and we'll plug yours over here, and maybe that will work. And people
It
were
becomes
so
an adventure.
generous. Yeah, and people were so generous and so, I mean, people would sit there and they'd say, you come in and you say, hi, can we stay the night, or can we plug in? And they go, oh, electric. And you go, yeah, they're electric bikes. And they would go, okay, that's interesting. And so who makes them? We'd say Harley Davidson. And you could see their faces going, are you kidding me? Because that's
Yeah,
not what you would expect, from
world
Harley.
known. Yeah,
So
world known brand of big,
big
motorcycles, right?
thumper.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
It was
noisy.
weird because one scene that you guys had down there where the people invited you in, right? You go ask to plug in, and the people are like, "Yeah, sure, come in." And then next thing you spend the night there, and you have dinner with them and stuff. And there was one scene where the guy kept looking at Ewan the whole night. He's just like, he's like, I know this guy. I know this guy. And he's thinking like, I've seen this guy before, but he doesn't know, because who's gonna think that you and some big famous actor is gonna show up, right? Especially these
Yeah.
people, they live way over there in the middle of nowhere, right? And yeah, that's the last thing you think. Did he eventually?
I remember one time when we did Long Way Down, going through Africa. We went to Morocco, and that's where they did the original Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
They filmed
the
it there.
set.
They did it in these troglodyte homes that were actually dug into the ground because it was cooler in the desert. And so we passed by there, and he'd already done Star Wars, and so we went onto the movie set of the which is now a tourist thing, and he was sort of standing. Nobody,
No one
nobody
recognized him.
not a single man. And eventually he was standing by his poster. Like that. And people were going by,
There's,
and nobody
there's a
noticed.
picture of him there. He's one of the cast of Star
We were
Wars.
just
And
laughing
no
our
one
heads
pays
off.
attention to him.
Not
Yeah.
a person. Even it was so
Out
funny.
of all
It
the
really was
places
funny.
where to be recognized, right?
I know.
It's like
You would think
that
at
that's
least
there.
there. But no, but it was, but that was the fun thing about the whole thing. I think it made the trip very different. And when we had the big BMW adventure bikes with huge tanks, you could do 500 miles, or 350 miles of range, and you could pull over and you could camp wherever you wanted, and so you had a bit of a sense of freedom. With the motorbikes being such and in their infancy of technology at the moment, we were restricted a little bit in that way, of where we didn't have that freedom as we did on the past trips. But what made up for it was that we started to realize that not only were we just sort of plugging into people's houses, but we were actually plugging into people's lives. And we were seeing, like you were saying, for instance, with that guy who we ended up having dinner with and stuff, and he was sitting there scratching his head thinking, I'm sure I know this guy, and so we would never normally have had that experience, because we would have just gone to a petrol station, filled up, and off we go again. And so it was definitely different, but it certainly made the whole thing completely different. which was
Yeah.
and that was super interesting. It really was.
Yeah. So you guys, this long way up is airing currently, right? I think
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the final episode just aired like a week ago or something.
Yes, that's right. On Apple TV.
Apple TV. It's very enjoyable. I love the fact that the whole electric thing. It's a thing. I have myself of an early pre-order of the Rivian because the first time that I saw it at
Yeah.
the LA Auto Show, I was like, "Whoa, this is a truck. This is the one that I want." Right? It's
Yeah, why
electric and
wouldn't
it's a
you?
truck.
You know?
Yeah. And you guys got a chance to use it to put it to spaces. It wasn't easy, right? Guys had a couple breakdowns. I know you guys broke a axle or something in some of the desert up there. Because I mean,
Yeah, for
this is a
sure.
pretty extreme terrain and pretty extreme adventure that you guys put this through. I mean, it's the best thing that Rivian could have done is handed it over to you guys and be like, go, and see how far you can get in one of the most remote places and one of the most extreme
No, yeah. I
trips that
mean,
you're
for
going to
sure.
take.
I mean, what's that for the Rivians to work? We I think one of the big sort of land grab things that is going to be happening now is who's going to own the charging
The
points around
stations.
the world, charging stations, and that's
Yeah.
a big thing because culturally everything's going to change. I mean, we just opened. There's just a charging station just opened here in Britain on the freeway, where you pull in like a normal fuel station where you can get restaurants and food and stuff, and they've done a purely electric one. So you go in, you plug in fast chargers, and then you go into a very different environment. So there's sofas, it's comfortable, it's more like a cafe environment where you can sit. They have meeting rooms, so you can go and have a meeting if your business and you're crossing paths. You can join and spend your 30-40 minutes sitting there on your computer working, or do whatever you need to do. Have lunch in a nice restaurant. So all of those kind of things. And when we do long journeys on electric, we're going to sit there and think, well, if I'm going to leave now, I'm going to leave in my next charging point. I can stop and have lunch in a nice place, or I can, so your experience is going to change, and that's what's interesting. So when with the Rivians, they needed to be charged from like a fast charger type thing. So this electric company said, right, we'll start putting these chargers in for you, and then we'll leave them there, and then anybody who wants to do the trip electric, they
Yeah.
can. And we've got to put these charges in anyway. So let's all
Let's
work
do it
together.
now.
So so
Yeah.
so we did that, and that was brilliant. They put these charges in, and what and you and I were really excited. And then at the beginning of the trip, we realized that the Harleys don't take a phase 2 charger; they take a phase 3 charger.
Okay.
So,
So you
so
guys
these
couldn't
things
use
were
them.
completely useless for us.
Okay.
So we were back to
Ah.
plugging into a wall.
Oh no. But eventually they give you guys an adapter or
Yeah.
some sort, right? That
Yeah,
would
we developed this Rivian to bike charger, so we could take a charge off the Rivian, and we
oh
could
yes.
we could fill it. Instead of taking 11 hours, it would take an hour and a half.
Yeah,
So
because
so that was a bit of a changer for us as well.
what people don't realize is that Rivians have the biggest battery that it's available in any vehicle up to date now. I mean, up
Yeah,
to 180 kilowatt hours, right? Which is a giant battery by any standard. And so, if you could charge that fast, then you can charge both of those bikes no problem off of that battery.
yeah. I think but I think the big trick now is it's a bit like when VHS and Betamax came along, and there
Yeah.
was a big competition as to who would win out, and VHS eventually won out, and
One.
and
Yeah.
um, uh, and I think the same thing is sort of happening with the electric world, because there's sort of basically three kind of chargers at the moment
Yeah.
that you can use, and it looks like Tesla and everybody are going for the CCS charger, which is
CCS
that
combo. Yep.
which is basically probably is the fastest of them all, really.
Yeah,
In
I
the
just
end of
talked
the day.
to the guy that runs that, and it
Yeah,
turns out they have so many good things coming in the future
yeah.
that it for surely is going to be the winning format,
I
the
think so. I
winning
think so, and I think
standard.
I think they're going to be the kind of the VHS of the of the charging world now, and I think everybody's going, and that's where Harley Davidson is. Although that didn't do us any favors at all on this trip.
Yeah,
But you know, one of the
yeah,
other
because
interesting things, but one of the coolest things was that we did was, and I didn't realize this was that when we got to Costa Rica, what I didn't realize is that something like 90% of Costa Rica's power is renewable.
renewable. Yeah.
And the first light bulb that was turned on in Costa Rica came from renewable energy.
Wow.
And it's put in prison, so they have no military. So all the money that they spend on that you would spend on military, they spend on renewable energy, infrastructure, school education, and stuff like that. And anyway, an amazing place, right? And so we were there, and we came across this huge solar farm, and I don't really know how a solar farm works, other than the fact that the sun hits the panels, and that somehow is converted into electricity, and that goes onto the grid. So we thought we'd check it out and just see how it all works. And the guy goes, yeah, come in, and he was completely off the cuff, and he said, yeah, come in, and he goes, you know, you can plug in while we're having the tour. So we plugged into this solar farm. So we were getting direct energy from the sun straight into the motorbikes. That was, and you suddenly just thought, you know what, this is cool. I've got solar panels being put onto my house, and over the year of these solar panels, I can get 22,000 miles of energy from these solar panels. So I can get pretty much all of my driving and more just from these solar panels for free.
Yeah, that's when the light bulb goes up in your head, right? Going like, wait a minute, this is free energy. We're gonna be running on sun all day.
And I think we will. And you know, I mean, in Britain here, we've just started this whole thing about, you know, by 2030 you won't be able to buy combustion engines again, and which is a real shame, obviously, because I'm a big petrol head as well as an electric head. So, you know, I love it all, you know, but sadly we can't quite have it all.
I think it's gonna get here, right? But slowly. Now that you've driven, well, basically a big chunk of the world on electric technology, what do you think? Do you think that is the future? Do you think that eventually they will be better machines? I know right now the whole range anxiety is a real issue for a lot of people for traveling. You know, you guys had a long crew with part of the trip. You guys had like a truck with a diesel generator on there, right? So that's a bit of cheating, maybe by some people's standards or whatever. But you had to do that. You were in a remote place. Do you think now that you've spent so much time and you are probably among the top people with most experience traveling in some of these devices or vehicles that are in prototype stages, do you think it's going to be here soon, and you think it'll be a better technology?
I mean, I think it is. I mean, I think if you look at all the big manufacturers now are pumping these electric cars out now. Volkswagen have just done that new Golf, which looks amazing. Honda brought one out. Kia, I mean, you name it, they're all bringing out these electric vehicles, and so I think it's here. I think the charging stations, I think people just it's more of just the fear of the unknown. The infrastructure is there, really. I mean, if I want to go from LA to San Diego or further, or well, when you and I crossed, interestingly, when you and I crossed over the border from Mexico back into America, you know, I remember the first day we headed out, and we thought we were going to go to one of these fast chargers, and we've been so used to plugging in that we didn't really have any kind of impression of how long it would be, because we'd never actually fast charged a motorcycle before, really. And so we rode our 80-90 miles to the first charger, and we plugged it in. I think it was a Walmart that we were sort of staying in. We plugged it in, and I remember plugging it in, and I remember looking, and I remember thinking within a couple of minutes it had already done 8%. And it was like, oh my gosh. And the only thing I can equate it to, the excitement that we had, was it a bit like when someone walks around the corner and they see a moving escalator for the first time, and they think, oh my gosh, and the stairs move, you know, and that was what it was like. And suddenly from the first day, from struggling to do 160 miles a day, we did 240 miles that day.
Wow.
And the fast chargers were there.
Yes.
And we made it from where we crossed the border into Los Angeles,
No problem,
just
right?
no problem at all. So the infrastructure is actually there. I think it's just the fear of the unknown and people's, you know, because they don't
Yeah.
understand it. They just say, "Oh, but there's no infrastructure."
Yeah.
Whereas there is.
After years of driving this is a DIY one, which only charges, slowly. It takes about 6, 7 hours to charge. Then I bought my wife a Tesla, and so now we could totally travel with it. The
Yeah,
Tesla's superchargers network does almost about 1,000 miles per hour. That's how much. That's how
yeah,
fast it charges. So it literally takes 5 to 10 minutes, and you got another 150
yeah.
miles of range, and so you're
Yeah, I
good to
mean,
go.
it's easy, and they're everywhere. And that's the
They're
great thing
everywhere.
about what Elon Musk did. He spent all his money, or a lot of his money, on
Setting
infrastructure,
infrastructure.
and
Yeah.
that's the clever thing. And I think a lot of it took up until recently for the other car manufacturers to realize the importance of infrastructure. Yeah, so
So
that's it.
the
I think the long-winded roundabout way of your original question was yeah, it's there really. I,
It's
I
gonna
think I
happen.
think we just have to change the way we think about things a little bit,
Yeah.
not
So the
much.
big question is, which will be your very first? I mean, you might already have one. I don't know, right? But I don't know. Electric vehicle, where you will you that you will get or buy?
Well, I've just been working with this company over here called Drive Electric, and they supply electric cars to whoever wants them and stuff. And I tried that BMW i3,
The
which
i3.
uh, which I really like. I think it's a really nice car. The interior is really really pretty. I
Yeah.
struggle a little bit with the little BMW wheel in the
Oh
center
yeah, and the
control.
thing.
I,
Yeah.
I find that a little difficult to learn. But and I'm just driving a Tesla at the moment, the
Oh,
Tesla
okay.
3,
The
the
three. That's the one we own. Yeah.
yeah, the 4-wheel drive with the extended battery
Ooh.
is what I've got.
Oh yeah. The long
And that
range.
it's long range, yeah, 287 miles.
Yeah.
But that charge is quick. As
Yep.
you said, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And the terrible thing is that we're in lockdown here, so we can't really travel. And well, I'm
You
just
can't go anywhere.
desperate. I'm desperate to travel somewhere just so I can use the fast charger again.
Yes. Yeah, it's the same thing here. I like going to like place remote for me is going 100 miles over here into the desert. I don't know if you've ever been to a place called Joshua Tree National
Yes,
Park.
yeah,
Okay, I love going there, and it's cool to take my Tesla. It's remote. There's nothing there, but you're like, it doesn't matter. I have enough range to go in there, enjoy the day, and then come back,
yeah.
charge on my way back home, and we're good. So I do have a little bit of that adventure travel thing that you have, but obviously not at the same level as you. And maybe one day I'll get there, and I'll do it in my electric, in
But
my
but
electrics.
but any adventure is a good adventure. I mean, just going out for a ride or a little drive somewhere for a couple of nights or a night. It doesn't have to be 100 days. It can be, it
Yes,
can be a
you
hundred
guys are a bit
hours.
extreme.
And just sometimes just stepping through your front door can be an adventure.
You know what the big adventure that I want to do is, because I enjoy driving these classic cars. I don't know if you've ever driven one of these Volkswagens that have a bunch of little windows, and they're like amazing, like touring like vehicles, right? And
Mm.
I want to take one or a fleet of them to Hawaii, so that I can rent them there, because these are so expensive and there's so much work, and there's shops not that don't really do it. I mean, like EV West does them for like celebrities like Ewan, right? But like the average person can't really go and drop that kind of money that it takes. So nobody can really experience this unless you have a
Oh, I
ton of money,
see. Yes. Yeah.
and so I want to build this fleet of these vehicles, electrify them, take them to Hawaii, and then rent them so that they can go and experience the islands.
And
Uh,
and and that's the thing. It's a bit like I've been using a lot of e bicycles at the moment. Pedal assist
e-bikes.
bicycles.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I just love it. And I do a lot of downhill mountain biking, and I love the downhill mountain biking. But with both my smashed up legs, I hate the up. And I mean, I
Yeah.
hated the up before I had my accident anyway. I hated it,
Yes.
but it just means the places you can go with pedal assist. And you know, I was driving around, cycling around Richmond Park, which in London here, which is a big park in the centre of London, and hundreds of bicycles go around there on the weekend. And I was going up this hill, and I was cycling up this hill, and as I went past this guy turns to me and he goes, "Cheat."
You're cheating.
You're cheating. And I'm going, well,
You're cheating.
you know, and so the electric bicycles, it's the same as you're saying about electric cars. Until people actually give it a go and realize that actually it's not a cheat. It enhances your experience.
It's an aid. Yeah.
The great thing you're doing with, and what Evie West are doing, is that you know, not trying to be eco warriors or save the planet or anything. This is about getting a classic vehicle that would, you know, that the engine's gone or whatever's gone, that would end up in the bottom of a garden and overgrown at some stage. And what you're doing is you're preserving a classic car by converting it into electric, and that's pretty cool. And the other cool thing is you can see the traffic lights in your Bug, and someone sits there in a 911, and you can just blow
can
them
take
out of the water,
Yes.
you know, for that first that 0 to 60. You know, I mean, you know,
Yes.
that Tesla is bonkers from 0 to 60, bonkers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's what we're doing now. We're putting those motors into some of our classics, and yeah, they're super fun. They're cool, and we're trying to do that. So that's why we are super exciting when we get to see a series in television with you two traveling the world in electric bikes and electric cars that are prototypes that we're all going to buy. I mean, I'm excited to get my Rivian next year, and you know, if I want to see if it's a good vehicle, I have to go just watch your series. Long way up.
Interesting, yeah. And maybe with a bit of luck, you know, for us, you know, maybe Ewan and I and Russ and Dave with the Rivians, you know, between the four of us, we all had just a little bit to do with the development of those vehicles.
Yeah.
It was kind of a fun thing to be part of, and it's lovely to be part of, you know, Harley Davidson and you know what they've done. They you know what they've developed with that electric vehicle, the Livewire. You know, they've gone the history of Harley Davidson, and they've drawn a line and said, look, this is where we're going now. And
That is a crazy thing, right?
yeah, and they've
Because
developed
it's one of the
something-
legacy companies that makes motorbikes, and for one of the big ones to say we're gonna jump into this next thing, that's a pretty crazy thing to have.
It's crazy, and not only have they done that, but they've done it in a beautiful way. They've built a beautiful vehicle that is you know, sexy. It's fun to ride. It rides like a sports bike. I mean, talk about acceleration. Oh my gosh, it's mind blowing how fast. I mean, it's 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. I mean, it is
Wow.
a quick puppy. It really is.
Yeah, it looks fun. All right, so Charlie, thank you for joining me today. It was incredible to talk to you about this stuff. Like I say, we were rooting for you from the very beginning. We're hoping that maybe there's another series with you and Ewan, because they're so enjoyable. We totally enjoy them. Maybe this time we'll do it on somehow, some other way. You guys will find another way to have an interesting point to do and then go to an interesting place on Earth. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Long Way Up is currently airing, just aired in Apple TV. It's a series, it's a travel adventure series. These guys are traveling the world. They did a good job. Some of the most beautiful places, by the way, in the world. I never knew South America was such a beautiful place. And now you guys captured it in HD, and it's like amazing. I mean, Ecuador, you know, yeah, some of those countries you'd never thought about. You guys showed them in all its glory. La Paz was amazing. Ha! I want to go there now. It's crazy.
Yeah. One of the greatest places on earth. It really is. Yeah, no, and it's all just on your doorstep. You don't even have to take a plane. You can just drive down there.
Just drive down there, because that's what you guys did. Well, except for Mexico. I have my issues with you guys kind of skipping whole Mexico there.
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
I'm Mexican. I'm Mexican. I'm like,
Well,
why did you guys get into a bus? And
well, no. I mean, I think the sad thing of that was we kind of more or less run out of time. You know.
you
So,
ran out of time. It seemed
uh,
like that was the thing. You
yeah,
guys just
that
trying
was,
to make it.
we were struggling to get. We wanted to be home for Christmas. You know, not
Yes.
Christmas. Well, had we known, that this whole COVID thing would have happened, we would have taken another year.
Yeah.
Tried to forget.
Yes, that's true. Because it's like you made a thing, but I don't know. To tell the truth, I don't know Mexico. I'm Mexican, but I've never been down there. But it's you guys probably spend the most time in probably the most beautiful part of that trip. I know
Well,
Mexico's beautiful. It's got a ton of like good scenery and stuff. But you guys probably did the best thing.
I think no. I mean,
Stay there.
I think I would love. One of the things I'd love to do would be to go back to Mexico and travel Mexico properly. I mean,
It's a huge country.
when we were in southern Mexico, that southern part of Mexico just absolutely blew my mind and how beautiful it was. And the influences of food in Mexico and that explosion of cultures that created Mexican food. It's not just Mexican. The influences from so many different countries has been taken on board by the Mexicans. It has created this amazing food. If you're a food lover like I am, I mean, I could just spend months and months and months. They would have to roll me out in a wheelbarrow out of there. But
Yeah, the
lovely
tacos.
tequila.
Netflix has a whole series of tacos, the Taco Chronicles, and it explains the whole background, how they made it to Mexico, the different kinds of tacos. I was like, man, I didn't even know that. I'm now Mexican.
Yeah, and that whole influence of South America coming up and influencing Mexico, and the food culture and the food history in Mexico is as you say is huge, far greater than you could imagine.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one day maybe I can join you when you guys are traveling Mexico, and we can eat our way tacos in electric bicycles or motorcycles.
Let's do
That's
it.
my dream, right?
Let's do it.
Crazy idea. It starts as a crazy idea, and then eventually you find ourselves in the middle of it. Charley, I want to thank you for joining me for this conversation. And we'll have you again in the future whenever you have another crazy adventure. I want to, keep the conversation going, right?
All right, mate. Okay, it was lovely to see you, and take care, and speak to you guys next time.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
All right.